Next step for Israel in this war? You're moving tanks to the region. This would, in many senses, mean that there is a ground offensive that is likely to take place very soon.
Before I address your question, with all due respect, I was listening to a very long coverage of what is happening in Gaza, and I would like to describe to you the situation here in Israel. In 20 days of war, a war that we didn't start and we didn't want, we weren't even expecting, a war that was forced upon us, and we were dragged into it by Hamas after they massacred us. Over 8,000 rockets were fired at Israeli territory from the Gaza Strip by Hamas and by Islamic Jihad. Just a few minutes ago, before I was sitting for this interview here, I had to run to a shelter. Hamas, murderous terrorists, butchered 1,400 Israelis, injured more than 5,300 Israelis, and abducted 224 Israelis. In fact, this is Erez Calderon. Erez was supposed to be celebrating today his 12th birthday. He is being held in captivity by Hamas terrorists, along with his father and his older sister. Erez's grandmother and cousin were murdered by Hamas. We have so many stories of this kind. This is the only reason why we are operating in Gaza right now. The only reason. We have one clear military objective, and that is to dismantle Hamas, their governance bodies, their military wing. Once we are done with them, Hamas will be no longer, because we have decided as a nation that we can no longer live next to an existential genocidal threat. So you're asking me about the next stage of the operation. I'm not going to speculate about a certain date and a certain time, because these are the very important, grave discussions that are being held right now in the highest levels of our government and our military. The next stage will come. One way or another, we will accomplish this goal. It will take as long as it takes. We are also consulting with international counterparts because, as you probably know, and I know you've probably reported that also foreign nationals and dual citizenship holders are being held in captivity in the Gaza Strip. So we are going to destroy Hamas and bring back these hostages.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tal Heinrich, there's no taking away from the fact that, people have been killed brutally by the Hamas in Israel. A lot of your people were killed in this October 7th attack. There were women and children. We're not taking away from that. But since then, over 6,000 people have died in Gaza. Have you not responded more than adequately already in this war?
You see, first, when you say killed, that our people were killed, they weren't just killed. They were burned alive, families together. Let me describe to you just one incident in which parents were tied in one part of the space. Their children were tied together in front of them. The terrorists took out the eye of the father. They chopped the mother's breast. Then they chopped body parts, fingers of the children before they murdered them. And they burned babies alive. They beheaded Israelis. And then they also raped, broke the pelvises of women. Wait. No. Let me describe to you what happened here. So
I understand that. No one's taking away from
Israel,
that. No one's taking
away. I understand. No. Because there's no moral equivalency here.
No,
we have a military that is no. We have a military that is defending the citizens of Israel. We're not going to take any chances, and we're not going to put our citizens in danger. What we're doing is that we want to dismantle Hamas. We are not targeting civilians. In fact, we want the people in Gaza, the Palestinian people, to live a life of prosperity and dignity, the life that they deserve.
Yes.
Everything that's happening in Gaza.
Tempers are running high. I
understand
that
Hamas's responsibility.
Are running high, but but many believe that war crimes cannot be justified by war crimes. That if
it's not emotions are running high, rationality is running high, ma'am.
In Israel, it doesn't mean that children have to be killed in Gaza. WHO says that 80% of those killed in Gaza are children and women. So I know that you're trying to take out
First of all,
Hamas,
why? Let me ask you a few questions.
Killed.
Do you believe numbers coming out of Gaza? Do you believe reports coming out of Hamas?
Some of these reports are coming up from international bodies, not from the Hamas. The WHO has said 80% of those killed are women and children, not the Hamas.
Excuse me. What do you mean the government, not the Hamas? Hamas are the people with the guns in the Gaza.
I said the World Health Organization says 80% of those
what
killed are
organization?
women and
What
children.
organization went into Gaza and counted, and counted the casualties? How many of those were terrorists who were killed, by the way? You see, you need to take with a huge grain of salt any information coming out of the Gaza Strip. Hamas controls everything there. There's no free press. There's no free speech. These are the people with the guns. This is why the Palestinians...
There are 2 million people in the Gaza Strip. What happens to them? That's the question. We are not only dealing with the Hamas here. When you pound the Gaza Strip,
them to be safe. We don't want them to suffer. We don't want them to suffer. We have no beef. We have no beef with the Palestinian people who do not support Hamas. We have no beef with the Palestinian people who believe that Israel has rights to exist and are not calling for the murder of the Jewish people. We have nothing with them. We are calling on them to evacuate. We want to see them moving southwards in the Gaza Strip to safer havens. We are making sure that they are getting humanitarian aid that they need.
But
Hamas are killing them. Hamas is using them as human shields. Hamas
Tal Heinrich,
are
can I have a
taking
word
their
in?
medical
Can I
supplies.
please have a word in? We've heard you.
Sure.
We've heard you. Are you going to allow an aid corridor? The fact is, a lot of the aid is still stuck at the borders. There are people at the border areas that are not being allowed to go out. Negotiations are ongoing, but people are still stuck. There are hospitals that have been bombed. What is the next step in this war as you try to take the Hamas out?
Let me ask you, why are people stuck? We're calling on people to evacuate. They know they should. Why are they stuck? Do you know? Because I know. I know the answer. In fact, we just released a phone call between an IDF officer calling a resident of the northern Gaza Strip, telling him to evacuate. You know what he said, that resident? That Hamas are setting roadblocks. Not only they're blocking the roads with cars, they're also shooting. They are shooting Palestinians. It's the word of a Gazan resident. It's not my words. I can send you the recording. We could have played it. Hamas are shooting their own civilians who are trying to evacuate. So Israel is doing everything. We're really looking at every possible avenue to minimize civilian casualties. Hamas are the ones seeking to maximize them.
Let's step aside from this for a bit and see what's happening in the region. Are you worried or affected by the fact that there are, this could escalate to a regional crisis at some point? I know that there is firing coming in from the Lebanon side as well. What are your government's thoughts at the moment of this becoming a larger issue or a larger war?
We certainly hope that this doesn't turn into a full-fledged war on different fronts. And we are warning, and the U.S. President Biden, when he was here, he also sent out a warning to Israel's adversaries across the region, ones that are also backed by Iran, like Hezbollah. You know that Hamas, over 93% of their budget comes from Hezbollah, and the Islamic Jihad, it's 100%. So we were very clear. We sent out this message, don't try us, don't test us, because if we need to act, and we sure hope we don't need to act on another front so decisively, we will do so. And it will be devastating for the citizens of Lebanon who have suffered so much in recent years if Hezbollah drags the region into a war on combined front. But Israel has won wars in the past on combined fronts. If we are required, if we must defend ourselves, we will do so. We sure hope that it doesn't happen. And we will see Lebanon, a sovereign state, responsible for any threat and any attack on Israel's territory emanating from its territory.
Tal Heinrich, I do want to ask you about the 224 hostages that are with the Hamas. Now, reports coming in from the Hamas saying that 50 of those have been killed. Is there any confirmation on your side of any of those numbers?
We are not taking, again, no comment on this report, obviously, but I'll say it again because I know I said it before. Hamas is not only using, the military war machine in the sense of, they're firing rockets at us and so on, and they infiltrated and they're trying to target us again and again in various ways with, the scope and brutality that we've never seen in this region. But they're also using their propaganda machine against Israel. And what you just described, that's part of their propaganda. That's what they're trying to do. So we are not not taking seriously any kind of Hamas reporting or any kind of reporting coming out of Gaza. This is a terror base. It's a terror base. It's a base of terror. It's the ISIS caliphate. This is why we're working there. This is why we're going to dismantle them, and this is why we're going to win.
Okay. What is the end game here? You will be, in charge of the Gaza Strip if you're going in for a ground assault. The West supports a two-state solution. Will you be taking over the Gaza Strip, or will you allow the Palestinian Authority to be somewhat in charge of the region, of the area?
Well, talking about the so-called...
Too premature.
As you know, a two-state solution terminology is a thing that means different things to different people, not only the Israelis and the Palestinians, by the way. And talking about a two-state solution right now at this stage, it's like talking about the Marshall Plan in 1934 or something like that. So there are different contingency plans that are being examined. We are looking at different avenues of what to do once we complete our mission. We also communicate with international counterparts in that regard, but we're not there yet. The first stage has to be completed. Hamas must be gone. Israelis will no longer live next to a monster. It won't happen.
Right. Let me ask you then, finally, while most of the anger, of course, is directed towards the Hamas in Israel, but there seems to be some anger against, the Prime Minister and the government about this being an intel failure.
Oh, obviously there's a failure here. This shouldn't have happened. We usually take a lot of pride in our intelligence, but you see, these are the questions that we will inquire, we will examine. We are a Jewish, free, democratic state. We criticize ourselves. We draw lessons, and we will do so when the time is right. We are, in certain aspects, we are addressing some of these issues where we have failed, because Hamas did surprise us with the terrible October 7th massacre, and we can never, ever let it happen again. So we are also drawing the important conclusions and lessons, and we will do so even in an even greater extent once we are done with the job of dismantling them.
Right. Tal Heinrich, thanks very much indeed for joining us on the show tonight and sharing your thoughts.